For some time my car has had this top end rattle, and I think it's the Vanos cam timing adjusters. Now I'm not absolutely certain, I have to say, and actually if you look at that one, you see this one's got the staining from the oil. This one looks as though it's been replaced before. But anyway, I've got two more, because these are unknown to me. I've got two more Vanos cam timing adjusters, and I'm just going to run through what I'm having to do to replace them. So to start with, you can see that I've just taken off the cam cover. Now there's nothing. Oh, I had to take off the the tray that goes across there, which means that if you've got the ordinary type of air cabin air filter, you'll have to take that off, then take the tray off. Then you have to take the ignition coils out, and once you've taken the ignition coils out, you need to undo the two earth straps for the ignition coils, which are these just here. You can see those, there's one there and one there. They are on two screws that actually have a dual purpose of earthing the ignition coils and also holding down the cam cover. So you need to take those off, lift the whole thing away, out of the way. Then you need to take off the cam box breather pipe that goes from here. It goes across to the inlet manifold over there. Let's see if I can show you that again, because that wasn't very clear, was it? So it's located about here, and it goes across to the other side where the inlet manifold is. So you can see the where it connects to the other end just here. Okay, so we get all that off. Then we undo all of the screws. They're 10mm heads on the bolts that hold the cam cover on, and lift it off. So that's good. The only thing I would do, in fact I've got a piece of cloth here which I've removed temporarily, but I bung up the holes around here, because if you drop anything down there you're going to be in big trouble. So bung up the holes around there, leave the spark plugs in, there's no need to take those out. And then what I've done, I'm sure you can see this if I tilt the camera a bit, I've taken the power-assisted steering reservoir off its bracket and moved it to one side and tied it up. I didn't want to drain the power-assisted steering fluid. But unfortunately, let's see if we can see this in the camera. Yes, we can. We need to take off the cam tensioner, cam chain tensioner down here, and there's not enough room to get in there with this water pipe attached. So what I've done is I've drained the coolant out of the car, and I'm going to disconnect this pipe and pull it out the side of the block. Or I think it goes into the head actually. Yeah, it goes into the head. I'll pull it out the side, and that should give me enough access to the cam chain tensioner. So we'll get that done, and then we'll pick up again once I've done that. Right, so that's removed that. So now we've got better visibility of the tensioner just here. So let's get the correct spanner for that. So it's a 27mm head, and this just about fits in there. There's another water pipe. Oh no, it's the one I've just moved to one side actually, but there's enough flexibility in that to move it away. Let's see if we can get this in here and get it undone. It's quite a shallow head, so what I want to be careful of is that I don't burr the head. I think what I'm going to try is I'm going to try a brake bar on it. I'm not using a brake bar particularly to give me more force, it's more that it gives me more control. Yeah, this is in the way as well actually, but we'll try and work around that. Well, that's tight. Let's move this round. Go there. Just make sure I'm doing this the right way. Yes, I am. Oh, wow, that is really on there tight. I've forgotten what the torque setting is for that. I think it's 60 something. Again, it's I'm just trying a bigger brake bar. Again, not because of the force, because I could force it, but I'm more worried about just keeping control over the thing and making sure that I do it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Probably revert to the ratchet now. Now, they warn you in the manual that there'll be oil spillage, so we'll get some of this rag down here. I've just realised something. Okay, learning from my mistakes. I need to set the cam locks on the back of the cams first, because by loosening the timing chain, it's going to allow everything to move. So I'm going to leave this in the video because I'm keen for you to learn from, to avoid my mistakes. So I'm going to do this back up. I don't have to go mad about the tension or the torque setting. Sure enough, there is oil coming out of there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the spray bar off, which is this. I'm going to slowly turn the engine over and I'm going to fit my cam timing kit onto the back of the cams so that I know they're locked in the right position. I mean, just to fill in some of the background, I'm not just going to replace these two units. There are two on each cam. There are two, they're called rector rings or something. I can't even remember what they're called, but they've got a funny name. They're two oil sealing rings. They're metal, and I want to replace them in case they're leaking. And to do that, I'm going to have the cams out, because I can't do that with the cams in situ. Now you can see that I've got the cam timing plates in place to lock the cams in the right position. If you've got an ordinary road going car, the step you'll need before you do this is to lock the crank into the position of top dead centre on number one, and you do that by pushing the locking pin through the it's either through the bell housing or the casting next to it, right down underneath the inlet manifold, which means that for you to do it that way you might have to take the inlet manifold off. I don't have the hole in the flywheel, because this has got a lightweight flywheel. I don't have a hole in the flywheel to use the locking tool, so it doesn't do me any good. So I've locked it in place like this, and what I will do when I reassemble it is I'll stick a dial gauge down the plug hole of number one and make sure that I've got number one set exactly to top dead centre, and then I'll be able to set the cam timing up, etc. Another quick note here regarding the orientation of the cams. The lobes on inlet number one should be pointing upwards and slightly towards the spark plugs, and the lobes on the exhaust side on cylinder number one again should be pointing upwards and slightly towards the spark plugs. So they're pointing more or less together. You can also check it by using the other part of the timing tool that fits on the cam sensor plates, those two holes that you have in the sensor plates. If you put those in place, that will confirm that you have the orientation of the cams correct. Right, there was no big secret here. I just undid the two bolts at the front, and you can see I've taken out the exhaust cam adjuster. A quick additional note here, you'll notice that I've tied a piece of wire around the timing chain so that if it drops I can fish it back out. So I'd advise you to do that. It's unlikely to drop because of the guides, but it's always good to be safe. So I've tied it around the chain, and then I've tied it around a hose further down in the engine bay. Just be aware that the bolts are really tight, so I use this bar to get them undone. You might even need a bigger one. They are very, very tight. So I've got that. Now, the only thing I haven't shown yet, and I thought I'd show it at this point, is that on this engine, and it seems to be on different variants of the N45 B16 engine, but my one has this additional metal plate here, and I think it's to stop the chain jumping if you get a backfire or something. I did see an explanation for it, and I can't remember what it is, but there is this additional plate. It's just got one Torx head screw that's holding it in, so I'm going to take that off, and then I'm going to take off the cam adjuster. So when you take the cams out, you have to undo this screw here. Just obviously be careful. If you drop it, it's going to be a disaster. So just make sure you're very carefully doing that, and plug up the timing chain case here so that it doesn't fall down there. And then we just undo the cam, the bearing caps. What you want to do is undo them fairly evenly so that you don't put a lot of strain on one or the other. Obviously, one of these valves, and if I look and see which one it is, I think it's this one just here. That's one of them. Yeah, that one. That's the inlet valve, one of the, or the pair of no, not the pair of inlet valves. What am I talking about? Yeah, the pair of inlet valves. Of course, they're across that. Pair of inlet valves on cylinder 3, they're open, so there's a lot of pressure on the springs. So what we want to do is undo it very carefully, bit by bit. You can take off the front cap completely and then just do these gradually. I'll start from the middle and then work outwards, and just very slowly release them each side. This cam timing kit has got to come off, obviously. So we'll take that off, then we'll undo this at the front here, then we'll take that big bridge cap off that bridges across both the cams, and then we'll remove the other caps. The only other thing to be aware of is the spray bar clips are located on the caps. Just be careful you don't drop one of those. I don't think there's anywhere much it could go. There are oil drains actually at the front, at this edge of the head. I suppose they could fall down one of those drains back into the sump, which you obviously don't want. So just be careful as you take them off. Putting them back in the right place is fairly obvious, because you'll see the oil staining will show you where the clips originally went, but you might want to take a photograph of the cams before you start to remove them. All right, we're now at the stage where we've got all the caps off. One thing I did want to point out to you is the first thing: the caps have got a letter and a number stamped on top. So the first one is E1, E2, E3 and E4. So one thing to notice here, if you're in English speaking country, is when you see E1 you might think it's the exhaust cap. It's not. It means ein, which is inlet. So excuse my German accent, I can't speak German. And on this side you'll find they say A1, A2, A3 for Auf, I think it is, for exit, so or exhaust. So don't be confused by that when you come to put it back together. Don't worry too much about putting the caps down in a way that you can tell which way up they go, because in fact they can only be installed one way. If you can see, say there, you'll notice the studs are offset. You know, this stud is closer to the center line than this one, so the caps can only go on one way. So once you've done all that, you can simply lift the cam out carefully. And if I show you, try not to get oil all over my hands, the oil seals that I've spoken about, the rings, they go in the grooves, in the two grooves here. Okay, at this point I start talking a load of rubbish about, you know, is it because the rings lose their springiness? The rings don't, I don't think the rings turn in the aluminium. In fact, I'm 99% sure they don't. What does happen is the cams turn, obviously, and the rings stay still. So the real areas of wear are that the rings get thin, you know, in terms of width, and maybe start to leak oil in that way. I'll tell you more about it when I've taken one out, when I've undone them, because I've never done this before and they do look tricky, I have to say. So I've got the seals. I'm going to attempt it. You might want to ignore this bit and not replace these seals. I don't know. It's a fine run thing. I was told that these seals are a cause of getting a rattling noise in the Vanos cam adjuster unit. So I am keen to change them, because I don't want to put it all back together again and half done the job and then find that it still rattles. If I put it all back together again and I have done everything and it still rattles, then it's obviously nothing to do with these Vanos units. So let's look a bit more closely at the cam itself. I don't know if you can see this, but there's quite a lot of scoring on the journals. And if I show you one of the caps, you can see there's quite a lot of scoring on there as well. Obviously, at some point in the past, this engine has been run either with low oil or with dirty oil. Something has caused that scoring. There's nothing I can do about it. It's not like the cam bearings have got shells in them. They haven't. They're just, the journals run directly in the aluminium. I could, I guess, have the caps milled. Just take, say, 10 thou, maybe not even that much, off the surface of the cap, and then have it line bored back to the original size. I've had a bad experience with line boring, so I'm not a big fan, but it is possible that could be done. But obviously my concern was that the rattling was caused by this. But what I've done in the past, and I'll try and link to a video where I did this, I measured the movement of the cam in the caps with with them all bolted up, and it was really low. It was, I think it was about 1 thou or 1 thou and a half. So what I did basically was I put a dial gauge on one end, and then I levered the cam up and down to see if I could get any movement, and it's pretty minimal. So I don't think that's the cause. And in fact, the other reason is, which I'm also going to add into this video if I haven't done it already, is if I use a stethoscope and listen to the engine running, as you move the stethoscope along the cam, you can't hear the rattling noise that I can hear outside the engine, but if I move the stethoscope to the front where the Vanos units are, the Vanos cam adjusters, I do start to hear the rattling. So it's something to do with the front end of the engine. It shouldn't be the timing chain, because the timing chain was replaced reasonably recently. It could be, the only other thing it could be is, to me, the chain that drives the oil pump seems particularly slack. And I have worried about that, but I'm assured by people in the know that they usually are quite slack. So, I don't know. So maybe that's not a problem. But anyway, let's crack on. So I'm going to try and get these seals out of the end of this cam. Okay, that turned out not to be as bad as I thought. I was a bit worried about this, I must admit. But let me show you. This is the new seal. And you see, I hope you can see that it's got like a latching mechanism like that. So what you've got to do is pop the latch. The way I did it was I just used one of these pointy tools. See if I can do this one. Hopefully this one will be just as easy. Yeah, so it's just popped straight away. Okay, and then obviously you've got to open it up a little bit. Let's get it off. I don't want to snap it because I need to prove to myself that this can be done without snapping the seal. Yeah, okay. So there you go. So that's the original seal. It looks as though the little pip, the little bit. So it's obviously got a bit brittle, so the little pip on the end has broken off. So that now no longer latches together. I think this one's okay though. They look slightly different. The latch looks more delicate. Well, I've taken that the wrong way, haven't I? Need to bring it back this way. Yeah, so in that one, the latch is still good. So you can see it still, whoops, it still works. Sorry, I'm not doing this too well, am I? There you go. Hopefully you can see that has latched on. Okay, so that's getting them on. If we do a comparison, because, you know, the other thing is, actually, I think I'm going to get my micrometer out and just check this. We need them to be the same width. They look the same. They're not shiny. Like, you know, the new ones are not shiny like the old ones, which is hardly surprising because they've been running in the engine. I think I might wash the groove out round here with some brake cleaner just to be very sure. I can't see signs of any damage in the groove. In fact, it all looks really good. Okay, let's grab a micrometer and check those. Okay, sadly, I've only got an imperial micrometer of this size. I've got a bigger one, but it's that's in metric, but it's too big. Okay, so here's the original ring, and let's see how big this is. Yeah, so it's 75.2 thou. That would be right, wouldn't it? Because that's a tenth of a... Sorry, I'm not showing you, am I? So using this imperial micrometer, if I measure the width of the original one, or one of the originals, it measures as 75.4 thou. 75.4. Okay. That's... I need to be careful here because I'm going to get these muddled up. That's an original. So let's just make sure the originals are the same size. Yeah, 75.3, close enough. Okay, so let's go for the new one. Yeah, 75.4, just above, but that's okay. Okay, so looks good. So what I want to do, I'm going to clean the slots, and then I'm going to stick some oil around them no, actually, maybe I'm going to assemble it first and then stick some oil around it. Otherwise, assembly is going to be a pain in the neck. Yeah, so let me clean them. I'll assemble a couple in there and then I'll stick some oil on them. Okay, so I've given them a clean. There was nothing untoward in the slots. So let's try and fit one of the new ones. Now I want to skip the first slot and go on to the second. Okay, so that's in. Now I guess I'm going to have to push one over the top of the other because I can't see how else this is going to work. It's got to ride over the top, hasn't it? Because I can't push them together because, you know, once they're in the slot, there's not enough space for it to sort of snap into place. So what I've got to do is get it over the top. Oh, there you go. Oh, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Okay, so that's one of them. So we go at another. Wow. Okay, well, I tell you what, I really was, I was quite terrified of doing this. I thought this was going to be really hard. And it wasn't. It was nowhere near as hard as I thought. Okay, so stick some engine oil on it. And just work that into the slots. There we go. Okay, so I think that's ready to go back in the engine. So we'll put that one in. I won't film myself doing the exhaust one because if there's any difference, I'll let you know. But I don't think there's going to be any difference in the exhaust side. So I'll reassemble this one back into the head, and then I'll move on to the exhaust one. Okay, you can see that I've reinstalled the inlet cam. Now, a couple of things to note. The first one is that before I put the caps on, I squirted oil onto each of the cam journals so that they weren't running dry. And then I put the caps on and I bolted them down, tightened them, moving backwards and forwards across the cams until I got them bolted down, and then I torqued them. On my car, these are M6 studs, and according to my Haynes manual, you tighten them to 10 Newton meters, which is not a lot. I mean, that's the smallest, that's the lowest setting that my smallest torque wrench will go to, which is yeah, a bit bizarre. But of course, being aluminium caps, they'll expand faster than the steel studs. So actually, as the engine heats up, they'll tighten. The other thing is orientating the cam correctly when you put it in. You are not going to get it in the perfect position so that this square at the back is pointing completely upwards. Because as you bolt it down, it'll find its own natural position that it wants to go. But you can get this 180 degrees out. So if you remember, if we go back a bit in the video, I said that the inlet valves on cylinder number 3 were being pushed down by the cam, and so that's the way I've orientated the cam. So on this side, in fact, the other thing is, if you look at number 1 cylinder, let's come around a bit. If you look at number 1 cylinder, you'll notice that the lobes are pointing upwards and slightly inwards, and the same on the other side. And that is because you're at top dead centre on the power stroke. So the engine turns clockwise, so these lobes will go that way down and open the exhaust valves. So you know that you're orientated correctly if your cylinder number 1 lobes are in that position. Bearing in mind that you should have set them like that in the first place when you put the pin in to get top dead centre. It's funny because my timing kit says they should be pointing upwards and slightly outwards, but they never do that. So even if I rotate it 180 degrees, they will not be in that position. So I'm not quite sure why it says that. Something I should mention is that the sealing rings, when you refit the cam, the sealing rings, the joint in them should face upwards. So just make sure that you rotate the rings so that they're pointing upwards. One additional thing before I forget, before you attempt this job, if you don't already have one of these, it's a magnet on a telescopic thing. You can get them really cheaply. Get yourself one, because if you drop one of these nuts, it's going to go down here. You want to try and get it before it goes down the oil gallery down into the sump, and you can do that with these. In fact, on an earlier video you might have seen, I had one when I first opened the cam cover on this car when I very first got it. The nut for this one was missing. That nut was missing, and in fact it was down here. Just about to drop down one of the oil galleries. Luckily it had wedged and it hadn't gone down, and I was able to fish it out with one of these magnets. Right, we're ready to install the Vanos units now. So the Vanos adjusters, not the solenoids. Obviously there's a difference here. We've got solenoids on the front of the block which control the oil flow into these Vanos cam adjusters. A couple of things about the installing these. The first one is you must use a new bolt, because I think it's stretch. These are stretched, if I remember rightly. When you torque them up, I'll have to remind myself when we get to that stage. The second thing is, obviously I'm going to oil this all up. I'll just put oil around here and I'll put oil around this. You might be tempted to try and install it like this and then install the cam ring, the sensor ring. It won't work, I can tell you. I remember trying to do it before. So you need to install it as one piece like this. Don't worry too much about the position of this because you can get that right later, but you just need to get that all in one go. So we'll just oil up this this bit here. Oh God, spraying it all over the place. Okay, so that's on there. I mean, this doesn't spin anyway, so and don't worry too much. It seems really sloppy, but the bolt is going to hold it hard against the camshaft, so don't worry too much about that. And then we want oil on this side, and I'll try and put some inside there. Obviously, once the solenoid opens, it's going to pump oil into this whole unit, but we just need to get a bit around there. Okay. Just make sure you've got the right one. So it should say iron and in, which it does just there. I don't know if you can see that in the light. But this is the inlet side one. They do have different part numbers, so I take it they do work in different ways, but I'm not quite clear on what the differences are. And that's just pointed straight up into my face. Okay, so that's pushed on. And then what we'll do is we'll just put a bolt through and loosely tighten it up. We've got to do all the adjustments and everything before we properly torque up the bolt on the front of it. Okay, so this is listed under the torque setting is listed in my Haynes manual as cam adjuster to camshaft. So and this is going to be done up to 20 Newton meters and then 2 times 90 degrees twist. I am going to roll the back of it. It doesn't say that you should or shouldn't, but I'm going to do that. So we'll just put that in just to hold it in place. Yep. Okay. So I'll move on and do the exhaust one, and then we'll pick up after that. Okay, so that's both of them in place now. Something you might notice is that this unit has a new sensor ring, and this one I've had to install the old one. The reason is because I bought this one as new old stock off of eBay. They're both Febi units, Febi Bilstein units, but this one didn't come with the ring and it didn't come with the bolt, so I bought a new bolt, and I'm going with the old ring. There have been a few reports in our race series of these rings breaking and of this whole thing coming loose. My timing kit comes with this special tool, which is a temporary chain tensioner, so I'll screw that in place. I hope this is going to clear. Actually, I'm a bit worried about the length of this bit. So what you do is you do it up until it applies a certain amount of tension to the timing chain, and then I need to sort out the timing. So I need to install the timing kit. In fact, actually thinking about it, I'm going to install the timing kit. No. I'm thinking about this on the fly. The first thing I need to do is set number 1 to TDC. So I'm going to take the plug out and put a dial gauge down the plug hole. So let's start with that. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the dial gauge down the plug hole. I have been fiddling backwards and forwards with this, but what I've found is top dead centre on number 1 is when I get that round to 0. So if I very slowly turn this round to here, okay, that there is top dead centre. Now the thing is that if you're going to do this, you want to make sure that you approach it in the direction the engine turns, which is clockwise from the front. Otherwise, if you try and do it and back it up to this point, basically you're creating slack on the wrong side of the chain. You'll be creating slack over here as opposed to where the actual tensioner's got to go. I haven't got the tensioner in place at the moment. I'm going to put that in place, but I just wanted to get the engine set correctly to start with. Then I'm going to put the cam timing tools in place, which is the 2 things at the back, and then I've got a thing that goes across the front to get these, what you call them, sensor stators or whatever you call them, in the correct place. So there's a couple of pins going there. So everything's set correctly. Then I'll do the apply the tension to the chain, and then I'm in a position to bolt up the cams in the correct set at the correct point, correct setting. Okay, so we're now at the stage. I put the kits on as I explained. I put the tensioner in the side of the head, or I think it's in the side of the head, or is it in the side of the block? Might be in the side of the block. Anyway, it pushes against the timing chain tensioner and tensions the chain. So I did that. So it was all locked in the correct place, and you can see it's still set to top dead centre. And then I used torque wrench to do the 2 front bolts to 20 Newton meters, and then because they're stretch torque bolts, you then do them to 90 degrees additional torque, tighten 90 degrees and then 90 degrees again, so a total of 180. I find that part of it really frightening. I hate that bit because I'm terrified the bolt's going to shear off, but I've done it several times now and it never has sheared, so I guess we're good. I use a pretty big brake bar to do it, again to give me more control. If you use a shorter bar, you're applying so much force yourself that it's very difficult to control it, and I find a bigger bar gives me more control over the tightening angle. So it's all done. I've missed a step here that's rather important. You remember that I said that when you bolt tighten the caps down, the cam caps, the cam sort of settles in its own position, roughly in the right position, but not quite right. So the question is, how do you rotate the cams to put the cam kit, the timing kit on? And what you do is you use an 18mm open end spanner, and you might be able to see there are a couple of flats on the side of the cam, and you'll find that the 18mm spanner is just right to fit onto those flats and to turn the cam. What I'll do now is I'll take the dial gauge out, put the spark plug back in, take all the timing gear off, all these bits, take the tensioner out of the side, put the correct tensioner back in. I should use a new aluminium crush washer, but I only replaced the crush washer about 3 track days and 2 races ago, so it was done just over the winter. I'm going to try and go with it again. If it starts to leak, then I'll have to take it off and put another one on, but I'm pretty certain I'll be okay with that. And obviously I've got to put the spray bar back in, and then cover back on, connect up the coils, connect up the pipes again, the crank cam box breather that goes into the manifold, and the job's done. I don't think there's anything else to tell. You know, as they say in the manual, just do the reverse of what you did when you took it apart. Oh, the only other thing I did do is I put this back on before I tightened up all these bolts in the front. I put the this plate thing that I believe is to stop it jumping a tooth if the engine backfires. So I did that. Yeah, but hopefully it's all good. So I think what we'll do is we'll pick up when I actually try to start the engine, which should be interesting. There is one other thing I should mention. If you remember, we took this screw or this bolt out of here. That needs to go back into there, so don't forget that one. I just came across it because I was emptying out the box which had all the bits that I'd taken off, so just remember that one's got to go back in there. A final thing I decided to do was to turn the engine over and check that these cam sensor plates don't actually strike against the cam sensors, which are there and there in the head, and it's fine. They don't. They come very close, which they're supposed to, but they don't strike against it. So I've done all that. Now all I'm going to do is drop the cam cover on. The way I do it, and I'm sure lots of people do this, is I smear the whole surface with oil, with a light smear of engine oil, so that the rubber gasket can move around and find its own sort of position, you know, and not get pinched or caught up. I certainly never use silicone. Okay, so I cranked it with the injectors, with the fuse removed for the injectors, and it cranked fine, and the oil pressure came up to about 20 something psi, so it's looking good so far. So fingers crossed, let's try and start it and see what happens. Okay, here we go. Well, thank goodness for that. I'll need to run it up and get it hot to find out if the rattling has stopped. I must say it sounds very quiet. I might be just imagining it, but yeah. So what I'll do is I'll let it run for a while, and the oil pressure looks fine. It's up at 75 now, so that's what I always get when it's cold, so that looks okay. But let's run it for a while and then we'll come back and see how it's performing. Okay, so my feeling is that it is quieter. I'm fairly certain it is. I can hear the noise of the gearbox input shaft, and they're always noisy on these. I don't know why that is. It could be to do with removing the dual mass flywheel, but I can hear that, and if I dip the clutch I'll show you. So you can hear I dip the clutch and the noise goes away. So that explains that. But yeah, I think this has been a success. Okay, well I hope you found that useful, and I'll catch you on the next one.